Welcome to the Sovereign Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ruiz. Today, I have on as a guest, Rob Reynosa. For those unfamiliar with Rob, let me tell you a little bit about him. Rob is a coach who works with people to help them comprehend, embrace, and utilize their creative power. He's also an entrepreneur and runs a brand called Think. It's an acronym for There Is No Ceiling. He also runs and is the host of the No Ceilings podcast. I know Rob as a friend, but I asked him to come on the show today to talk a little bit more about what he does. I want to discuss some mindset principles and talk current events. So without further delay, let's get on to the show.
Rob. What's good,
welcome.
Mike? Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate
you
man.
having me here.
Good to have you here. I'm glad you could join us. I brought you onto the podcast to talk a little bit about mindset. It's something that I've been working on for the past few years, and it's just kind of a journey. And, I know you've had your own journeys and gone through your own experiences. And you help people with that as well. So I wanted to tap into your thoughts on mindset. But before we get into that, can you tell for my audience and the people listening, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us your background, how you got to where you are, the work that you do, and kind of the idea behind your brand, Think.
Yeah, definitely, man. So, born and raised Los Angeles, California. And I went through a crazy spiritual awakening back in like 2011, 2012, where like my whole world was shaken up. Everything that I thought was real became questionable. And I had to work through all of that and determine what was real, what's not real, and pretty much forge my own path from that experience. And I'm just, basically combining it into like a few words here. But over a span of a few years, I went through a whole entire flip in my world where everything that I thought was true to myself and what was true about myself was actually false. And that led me to this really deep discovery about who I really am and what I'm really here for and what I'm really up to in life. And I don't think I'll ever find those exact answers in full, but it led me down this path though of self-discovery. And I knew that there was other motherfuckers out there in the world that were experiencing this same thing, the same feeling. And it just lit this deep fire inside of me to want to reach out and connect to other people who were dealing with this awakening type of experience, these aha moment type of experiences that I was experiencing. And it just led me to create a brand. Long story short, it led me to create this movement in the beginning where I was just connecting with other people through my writing, through my self-expression, through these ideas that were just coming through to me, in me that were ludicrous at the time, that sounded ludicrous. And the more that I just kept like fine-tuning these ideas and fine-tuning my expression and really putting my work out. And this is by this time it's around like 2013, 14, when social media or Instagram was just kind of getting some momentum, and I was putting out my work through that medium where people were connecting with me and like, oh shit, I get what you're saying, man. Like, this is crazy. And I was writing about stuff about mindset, spirituality, choosing the right path, things like that, tapping into your intuition, which wasn't really a popular subject back then. Again, like I said, spirituality, which wasn't a popular subject back then as well. And people were connecting with it. And I started to build a community and a tribe around that, using my intuition, using my gut to kind of guide me. And it led me into the work that I'm doing now, where I'm helping people develop their own mindsets, but also develop their own branding, their own marketing system or systems, also helping them develop their own authentic voice and teaching them how to tap into their voice, into their resources, their own innate resources, and how to get that into the world to help other people, and also develop a system, develop a business out of that. So in essence, that's what I'm doing now is I'm helping people tap into their truth, tap into their voice, tap into their self-expression, and really access these limitless capabilities and possibilities that we have within us, and teaching them how to really fine tune this and get this out into the world. Because right now the world, even more so, is hurting like crazy. And it's even of more importance to get this message, to get these people charged up and primed up and get them ready to take on this new formation of the world that we're seeing. So in a nutshell, that's what I'm up to. That's what I've been doing and whatnot.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's you actually bring up a really good point, and it's actually the motivation for me to start a podcast as well, and to help people build more sovereignty into their lives, which is kind of goes hand in hand to, you know, cultivating a mindset and also becoming an entrepreneur where they can build a brand and a business through that kind of self-awareness which they've cultivated. But the point that you brought up, which I can relate to a lot, is 2020 has really shaken things up. You say, you know, things were shaken up for you in the past and you had to kind of reevaluate where you were and what you're doing. And I feel like that's where a lot of people are at right now in 2020. They've lost either their jobs or they're just reevaluating their lives and what's important to them. And, you know, for a lot of people, I feel like, speaking for myself, that, you know, we've kind of operated on this program where, you know, we were told to kind of go down this path, you know, go to school, go to college, get a job and work your career and, you know, have a family and things will just be fine. Everything will be taken care of. But I feel like right now people are realizing a lot of that narrative that's been told to them, a lot of the aspects of that narrative is false, and that they're going to have to rely on themselves to figure it out. And so it puts a lot of people on a path of self-discovery, on a path of building out some skills along the way, bettering themselves, kind of leveling up. And that's kind of what I've gone through. Is that kind of what you're witnessing as well? Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Oh yeah, definitely, man. And I'm grateful too that I went through that. The transition that's happening right now, like the chaos, let's just call it chaos, right? It really is chaos. And chaos doesn't have to be bad. It just means that your reality is being shaken up. Like everything's just being like rattled up and stuff. You know what I mean? And from in that chaos, you're able to find clarity because you're fed up with how things are going, and you're like, "Fuck, dude, I got to do something different because this shit ain't working," right? And so chaos is always, to me, it's always a blessing. Thankfully, I went through that back when I did. It started in 2011. Really got to a really nasty, crazy dark point in 2014, and then there was light that was shown in 2015. But it was really bad back then for a while. It was good, bad, and it got really bad and dark in 14, depression wise. And I'm grateful for that experience because it prepared me for what's happening now, where a lot of people, what you're saying, where a lot of people are at right now, where they're in this state of depression. They're in this state of like, what the fuck do I do next? Right. And naturally so, like, I get that. I've been there too back then when I did have a secure job. I wasn't an entrepreneur. I was just having these aspiring ideas to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to get out of my job and do something for myself and do something purposeful for the world. Right now, there's a lot of people who maybe had those ideas and they're kind of like, all right, when I have time. Or there were some people that had no idea at all that like they wanted it, or they weren't faced with another alternative where they had to do something different to make a living for their family. And so I feel for those people now because it's a lot different than it was back then. And right now, everything's being shoved in your face. Like change is being shoved in your face. Like you have to change, you have to evolve or you will die. And so, yeah, to go with what you were saying, that's what's happening right now. Like you have to evolve. You have to think in a different way. You have to operate in a different way. And I know you didn't ask about this, but I just want to add this in here. There's a lot of people that were saying that they want to do things different. They want to take a different path in life. They want to create something different for themselves, but I just need more time. I don't have enough time. I don't have time to do this. We've all had a lot of time to make things happen, especially from the beginning of the year until now. The whole entire 2020 has been about time. You have time to do things. And I just think it's really, really interesting that the people that have been saying for years, I don't have enough time, all of a sudden you have time now, but you're not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
And I think that addresses a bigger problem, which is attention and prioritizing your energy and your work and your energy, or I said energy, your efforts, your actions, like really, really, really believing in yourself and taking the initiative to do things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
24, go ahead.
Well, yeah, that was going to segue into kind of my next round of questions or ideas, and those are kind of built on these traps, these mindset traps that we put ourselves into. And I've fallen victim to them. And kind of what I'm talking about is, the idea where you have to wait for things to be perfect to take action. And I know you're big on, hey, just take action, just go for it. Don't even worry about the outcome. How do you cultivate that kind of mindset where it's, it's a lot riskier. There's a lot of elements that go into that, right? You have to be okay with criticism. You have to shed the, your fear of what people think. And I know for a lot of people, it's a little difficult, especially, if you have family or friends that aren't supportive of you growing and changing along the way. And so, it just feels like that's a big hurdle for people to overcome. And that's partly one of the reasons why people hold back on moving forward, making certain changes with their lives. And like you said, 2020 is really a catalyst, really a time to do all of those changes, but yet people are still holding back. And so just wondering your thoughts on that, and how you would advise somebody, or how you would help someone overcome those kind of traps.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I like, first and foremost, man, like what pops out to me and like what I know is my truth is that like you have to be okay with fucking up. Like you have to be okay with things not going your way, and you have to be okay with failure, which means that you have to be okay also with looking stupid. Right. And there's the biggest setback that I see with people is they don't want to lose. They don't want to fail. They don't want to look bad. Right. And they don't want to feel bad in themselves too, as well. Right. Just recently, somebody had said to me, I don't want to put these projections or goals out for this next year or for this next month because I know myself. I don't follow through. Right. So there's like, you have the fear of looking bad, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of everything else, whatever, fear of failing. And then when you go deeper, there's other fears where it's like, well, I fear myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like it goes deep, man. It goes really deep. And so my suggestion, my advice, and this is why I always say, get into action, just fucking do it. Just get into action, put the work in, get in there, because I'm not attached. Like I'm not emotionally attached to failing or looking stupid. Like I get called, this is like like not even on the same topic, but it's kind of similar, parallel, but I get called out all the time by my girlfriend, Angie. Like, dude, you fucked up. You didn't do this, or yada, yada, you messed up. Like, what are you gonna do differently? And like, I'm used to that. And I take it on. Like I'm okay with it. I'm okay with criticism. When it's also like delivered in a certain way too, right? But like I'm okay with that because I'm okay with myself. I'm okay with looking bad, right? And when we hold on to that emotional aspect where it's like, I don't want this and I don't want that and I don't want to feel bad and yada yada yada, that's that trap. That what you're talking about, that trap, that's that trap that people get sucked into, and they stay in there and they live in there and they think it's normal, and it's not normal. And so like, what are we really fearing though? Right? Well, for one, the deeper root is we're fearing ourselves, but we're also fearing criticism. We're fearing backlash. We're feeling getting kicked out of that primal desire, which is to be a part of a tribe. We're fearing being kicked out of the tribe and looking stupid, right? But really, ultimately though, what matters is, do I feel good? And do I feel aligned with what I'm doing? Am I learning something? Am I able to take something away from this and fine tune it and get back in there and go at it, right? It's like, did you play football when you were a kid? Yeah, me too, right? So like, you're not going to score a touchdown every run, every pass. It's not going to happen. You're going to get fucking hit. You're going to get taken to the ground, and sometimes it hurts. Most of the time, it doesn't hurt until later on. You know what I mean? But like, you're going to get hit. You're going to get taken down, and you're not going to get there on the first pass, on the first run. It takes a while. Right? It takes a while. It takes a whole entire unit to move forward. And I'm not saying that you need a team to move forward, but you need to have all of your shit together, your mindset, your soul in there, your heart in there, and you need to keep pushing, you keep getting back up and keep going. Right? And so like, when you think about it in those terms, like, damn, man, like, all right, cool. I'm not going to make it in one shot. I'm not going to have success on my first run. I'm probably going to get hit, and I'm probably going to get knocked down. Am I going to stay down, or am I going to get back up?
It's one of those things that I've actually had to really embrace and work on. And that's the idea that failure is your path to success, right? Because like there's no escalator to the top, it goes straight to the top, right? There's there's all types of ups and downs that occur along the way. And it's one of those things where you just got to get comfortable with failing a little bit. And even though it stings and it hurts, you got to have kind of the mindset or the mindfulness to reflect on what is it that you did wrong and what is it that you can improve, and just get up, back up and try again, and not let that stop you and hold you back from pursuing, whatever goals or dreams that you do have.
Absolutely, man. And too, on top of that too, as well, like there really has to be an embracing or an embracement of that mentality, that mindset. Like you really can't give a fuck about what people are going to say about you and what they think about you, because ultimately, man, and what's helped me too here, and this is like gold here as well too, is like most people don't even think highly of themselves. And they don't even believe in themselves, right? And so if you're fearing criticism from your family and friends, especially your family and friends, which really don't matter at all, ultimately at the end of the day, like that doesn't mean shit. Most people are hating on you anyway. They don't believe in themselves. They don't think for themselves. They don't really like the progress that you're making. So why are you attached or connected to what people think about you? And that really has to be a ground, like negative ground zero, like a foundation where it's like, I am going to do what matters to me. And there is no concern or even second thought to what anybody else thinks of me. The only time I ever think about what people think about me is if I'm doing a good job with the people that I'm serving. That's what matters to me most. Anybody else who's just viewing my shit or whatever, or connected to me in some way, I don't care. I really don't care, because I'm on a path that most people don't even understand, because they don't understand themselves, right? And I'm saying that over and over again, like most people don't understand themselves. They don't even get themselves. That's what clicks in my head. And that's what has me waking up every single day inspired to do the work that I do. It's because I'm doing something most people can't. They don't have enough balls to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Why am I concerned with their thoughts?
The other part about that I've kind of noticed as well is that motion itself, just taking action itself leads to a process of discovery where you might not be clear about, who you are or what you're trying to achieve or what direction you're headed, but you're out there and you're giving things a shot and you're failing, but you're getting a lot of feedback, a lot of information from that, which you can use to help reflect and understand what it is that you want out of this world and what direction you want to head in ultimately. And going back to a little bit about what we were talking about and cultivating that mindset of where you're not really caring what people think, how important is self-talk, self-love, reframing the way you approach issues in your head? I've noticed that for myself, it's huge where, if you just reframe the question a little bit, or sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves, and it's like, imagine if you were talking like you are to yourself, to a friend. And, sometimes we can just be so mean to ourselves, and it really sets the tone in that direction. Like you were saying, when you were giving an example of people who are like, I can't do it. They already put that mindset in their head beforehand. Oh, I don't want to set these goals because I know I'm going to fail, and they're telling themselves that internally over and over again. So I was just wondering your thoughts on self-talk, self-care, and reframing just the way we evaluate questions and conversation in our own heads.
Yeah, that's another great question, man. Well, I see all three. I might forget the last one, but self-talk and reframing. I'll address those right now, and you can remind me of the last one so I don't forget that one.
Well, they're all aspects of the same thing, really. So
they're all extensions of the same thing. Yeah. And I see them as different distinctions. So like self-talk, but they're all connected though. Like the thing, what I mean is that they like when you address one and you start to understand one, then you can move into the next one, which is reframing, right? So self-talk for me, and this is just my opinion, right? So self-talk for me, it's like when you're like, that's something that you can't shut up or shut off ever. Like it's it's always going. You know what I'm saying? Like, even when you're listening to somebody else in the conversation, a majority of the time you're like thinking of the comeback. You're thinking of what to say, the rebuttal, right? Or you're trying to like analyze what they're saying. Well, what do they mean? Are they talking shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't shut up. It's always going, right? And so that's one version of self-talk. Then the other version of self-talk is what you're saying to yourself. And a lot of times we don't even realize that we're actually talking shit to ourselves most of the time. And so when you're able to kind of pause, and this is why, like, we haven't talked about this yet, but meditation, I think meditation is so important, man, because you're putting a pause on the egoic mind, right? You're putting the pause on the noise, and you're able to just sit with yourself and hear what's there, what's rattling all the time. And you really get present to, fuck, dude, I am destroying myself from the inside out. I am like thinking of the same shit that has happened 25 years ago, back when I was a kid, and I keep replaying it in my head. And so when someone else says something that sounds similar to what I just heard, it's like, it's boom, or similar to what I experienced. I'm sorry, when someone says something similar to what I experienced, I now associate it with that, and I create this whole dialogue around that and make it mean that it was this moment back in 25 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So like when you're able to pause and really identify what self-talk is, it's just that inner voice, that inner critic, right? And it doesn't have to actually be a critic. It could be something that is actually upholding you or uplifting you and bringing you to a different realm. But before you even get to that point, you really do have to understand what self-talk is. It's just that robotic machine mind that's always chattering. It's always trying to make sense of everything that's happening around you and within you. And when you realize it's just trying to make sense of things, meaning it's trying to attach meaning, it's trying to give explanation for what they said, make sense of things, whatever. It's not accurate like 99.9% of the time. It's based off of your own judgment, what's going on in your own head, your own belief systems, and yada yada yada, right? And so when you understand that self-talk is just self-talk, it's just like, have you ever been like in a sort of like a shit talking back and forth with a buddy, and there was somebody that was instigating it, and I was like, Mike, like, you're not going bald, but like, Mike going bald, and someone's like, yo, bro, like you got no hair, like you know what I mean? Like someone's instigating it, right? Like that's the self-talk mechanism. It's instigating things and trying to make sense of things that just don't really matter. And so when you identify the self-talk, when you really identify it for what it is, you'll see it's just this thing that just keeps going. So then if I can pause it and stop it for a little bit, tell it, shut the fuck up. Like, let me just be present to what's happening here. You can start to reverse the process, because self-talk is always, like I said, it's against yourself and against other people. Okay. To constructively use self-talk, you have to pause and you have to redirect it towards what you want. Right. And so when you redirect it towards what you want to experience, because again, self-talk is always about what you don't want. It's what you're complaining about, what doesn't fit your narrative. It's battling you. When you can redirect it and reconstruct it to fit what you do want, then you can start reframing things in your life. Right. And so, for example, this morning, or let's say 2 days or yesterday, I woke up with kind of a slight hangover. I did not want to do shit. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do anything. Okay. My priority, my main value in life is, or one of my top values in life is fitness, health, wellness, like movement. I got to move every single day. Doesn't matter what it is. I have to move. If I don't, I lose my shit. Like I'm losing my shit halfway through the day. I have to move. I woke up feeling like shit. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do anything. All I kept telling myself was like, look, bro, you got to get outside, or you have to get your shoes on. Just get your shoes on and you're good. Get your shoes on. And I kept reframing. I kept switching the language around a little bit. Just get your shoes on. Get your shoes on. I wasn't trying to even work out. I was trying to get my shoes on. Cool. Let's get outside now. Let's just get out to the hallway. All right, cool. Boom. Get out to the hallway. I'm like, I don't feel like it. I don't want to do this. Bam. Right. And this is just one example of many different ways that you can reframe it. I eventually got outside. I eventually started working out. I felt great. I sweated everything out, but I kept reframing, reorganizing my language to help support me to the next move. Okay. Yeah. So I'm understanding the self-talk of like not wanting to do anything. I wanted to stay lazy. Right. But I understood what that voice meant, and it wasn't my truth. It was coming from the alcohol and staying up late. It wasn't truth. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. That go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch touch on that a little bit because as far as I was just while you were talking, I was thinking about a very similar thing with myself. Well, it was this podcast and just, you know, understanding what I have to do to make this podcast happen. And, you know, I'm on the road right now. I'm staying at an Airbnb, and just the amount of work that it would take to set up and get this podcast up and the equipment that I would have to bring and all of that. And I was like, oh man, you know, I just don't know if I want to follow through with this this week. Maybe we'll do it next week. But then I reframed that. I was like, hey, look at this as a challenge. See if this is something that you can accomplish. And if you can accomplish it, you know that this is something that you can always like fall back onto, that just where you're at is not going to stop you from progressing forward and working towards your goals. And so it was just that reframing my mind from, oh, I can't do it, it's going to be so much work, to like, hey, let's take this as a challenge. Let's see if we can make it work. And if we can make it work, it becomes easier the next time. And it's something that we can build upon. And it's something that doesn't stop our progress or our momentum, you know? And so it was just that reframing that got me closer to, you know, the goals that I want to achieve. And that's, just real quick. And it just highlighted to me just how important self-talk is and reframing the conversation in your head is, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because like I said before, like, so, and as you know too, as well, like you can't get away from self-talk. So if you can't get away with it, or if you can't get away from it, you might as well make it work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Yeah. And so like, we're always going to be faced with things that we don't want to do or don't feel like doing, or that's uncomfortable, that's out of the ordinary, or whatever. We have to be able to break down, first of all, halt the negative self-talk, and then think about, what is it that I'm committed to? What do I really want to do? And then reframe it, restructure it to help us align with what we want to do. I think if everybody could do that, dude, like we would be in a totally different place.
Oh yeah, for sure. So listen, I wanna move a little bit away from self-talk, but also stay on the cultivating mindset avenue, and that's with vision. I want to talk about vision a little bit. How important do you think having a vision is? Kind of a North Star which you can point to and head in that direction, and also, you know, I see this was a problem in myself, and it was, you know, I operated on a very high time preference basis. So that means that, you know, I was constantly wanted to be satisfied and stimulated, right? And so that really held me from pursuing goals that would require, you know, a couple years of cultivation, you know, and that's also because I just didn't have a vision. And when I started thinking about what I want 1 year, 2 years, 5 years from now, it really helped clarify that vision. And once you kind of mute out all that noise and you just have this vision that you're working towards, it makes a lot of the other things kind of fall into place. At least that's my experience. Is that your experience? And when you work with clients, do you help them build a vision, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So if you don't mind explaining the question again, because I didn't quite understand.
So just like how important vision is to mindset, like cultivating a mindset, knowing what you're working towards, you know, and is that something that you kind of build over time, over experiences, and just like how important that is?
Yeah. So my in the very beginning of like this whole process of like self-discovery and development and stuff, I knew that I wanted to do something bigger than what I was doing or do what I was doing before, which was working at a job, really well-paying job, fucking perfect benefits. Everything was great about the job. That was a place where you want to retire and you would have money. Like when you were done, you were good to go, right? And I didn't want that. I wanted something for myself. I wanted to build something for myself, and I had that North Star that you're talking about. I just didn't know what it was. Where I'm at now in my life, from when I first began that process of thinking bigger, I don't entirely know exactly what I want as far as like how I want things to go down in the end. I just know that there's certain, and this might really help for your audience too as well, because a lot of times we think we have to have a very, very, very clear and distinct vision of where we want to go and what we want to do. a lot of times we can't see that because we really don't know. We're not really certain about that stuff. And I'm semi-certain, but I'm more certain about how I want to feel and how I want things to play out and how I want to feel how things play out or when things play out. Right. And so a lot of the things that I go for is feeling alive. Like that's my main thing is like, I want to feel alive with what I'm doing. Right. And so if I don't feel alive, I'm not really like that drawn to it. Right. And so then that's where reframing comes in too. Self-talk and reframing comes in because there's certain things that I do that are monotonous that don't feel that great. But because it's working towards a bigger vision, a bigger purpose, which is the bigger purpose is to continuously to feel good and to feel alive and to feel satisfied with myself. Never 100% complete, but to feel satisfied, to feel hungry. That's what I mainly aim for. And that's what's kind of drawn me into this process where I'm in now, where I'm kind of pivoting now away from one-on-one clients and helping people develop their mindsets and whatnot, more into like bigger, high-profile people and that arena of branding and marketing. I feel drawn to that for some reason, like elite athletes and whatnot. I'm definitely stepping away from people like how I was 5-6 years ago, where I was just trying to figure things out. And I can't really explain how that process, like how I got to this process. It just transitioned because I kept tapping into what feels right.
You just kept on, I guess, just through motion itself. I said, like we were talking about earlier, it just kind of leads to this self-discovery, self-awareness to, hey, look, this is what makes me feel alive. It's kind of letting your intuition guide you. It's kind of what I've been doing for the past couple of years. And wherever I feel that calling, wherever I feel that pull, that's where I gravitate towards and put my energy towards. And you know, it's kind of like you said, you don't have a set vision, but you have a vision on how you want to feel. You have an idea on how you want to feel, and you have an intuitive feeling of the work that you're doing and whether that work is fulfilling and promising, and you kind of just naturally go towards that route. And that's another thing that I want to touch on too, is that I think that's important to allow yourself that space to discover those things that are out there that you may not be aware of, even within yourself. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I use this analogy too a lot too as well. I haven't said this in a long time, actually. I forgot about this until now. Because I feel like I've gone through like 6 different like major pivotal purpose pivots, I guess you could say, where I'm like, this is my purpose. I'm going for it. And I went all out for it. And I started to get there and I started to develop certain things. And I'm like, I don't really fucking care about this anymore. Like I like the idea of it, but I don't feel drawn to it anymore. But what happened was I developed a bunch of skill sets, right? And the first pivot that I went into was like fitness. Well, it was actually juicing, like building a small little mini juicing company. I wouldn't even go as far as calling it a juicing company. I was slinging juices out of my car. like that's what I was doing. And so back when juicing was like first coming in, and I got on that train before it even got big, because I started to juice myself, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel alive. This feels great, right? And then it exploded, and I started to feed that market. And I'm like, there's something here. Like because some other stuff happened after that where I kept catching on to patterns before they happened, right? And that I felt alive because nobody else was talking about it. I was always being judged and ridiculed for like, oh, what are you talking about? It's not even like a big thing here. And then boom, it would pop off, right? And I'm like, I'm onto something. There's something there for me. And that's how I keep operating now, where I keep moving and pivoting into things that like that feel good to me from the inside. But what I was gonna say here though, the analogy is, what came to me like years ago was that like I jump on a pirate ship, let's just say, and I have to learn all the duties of the ship. I have to learn all the different types of things that happen on the ship, all the different roles, right? And then once I get to a certain place where I'm the captain of the ship, not to say that I'm the captain of any sort of realm or any sort of market, but when I know enough, and I'm like, I feel like I have to jump ship. I feel I have to go to another ship and learn their ship, a bigger ship. Right. Mm-hmm. But I have a bunch of different techniques, strategies, different skill sets that I've developed on the ship. I jump ship. I go overboard. Everybody's like, you're fucking crazy. You're going to die on the ocean. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm cool. I'll figure it out. I'm a good swimmer. I've learned how to swim now. And I find another ship. They take me on. I don't know anything about that ship. I start from the bottom. Then I develop skill sets. Then I go to another ship. I feel like I'm on my sixth ship now, right? I really do. And I feel like I have all of these skill sets that I've been developing over time. And it took me until the second ship. This is still an analogy. It took me into the second ship when I started to drop the guilt and sort of the shame and whatever around like, well, why do I keep jumping ships? Is it because it's getting hard? No, it's not because it's getting hard. It's because it's leading me to a different ship. It's leading me to a different path. And I feel like I've now embraced this whole jumping ship and learning everything I can in different markets, where I'm in a position now where I'm heading into like no man's land. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing, but it feels good. I'm able to create impact. I'm able to sustain the lifestyle that I want to live, and I'm expanding my lifestyle. Something's working.
Yeah, I could imagine that that also just builds confidence, you know, like knowing that you can get onto a ship and kind of build the skills necessary to work your way up, you know, and then realize, hey, okay, this was cool. You know, I got a lot out of this, and now it's time for me to jump ship and move to something else. But I'm doing that. I'm getting out of my comfort zone, and I'm doing stuff that, and I'm starting from the bottom. But I know that I have, you know, I've done it before, and every time that I do it, you know, it just adds to my skill set on what's possible, you know. And yeah, I mean, I totally, I can relate to that as well. As I'm learning out, in 2020 was actually a big year. I wanted to improve in certain, let's just say, if we're still using your analogy, like, you know, you see 6 ships on the dock, and I just wanted to improve. And it didn't have to be a 100% improvement. Like, even if I got 20%, let's just say it was writing, for instance. If I got 20% at writing, I mean, that's a lot, you know, to improve upon. And if it was public speaking, hey, I just need to improve 30% from where I was. You know, I just need to step out in front of a crowd and be able to do it. And then if it was, you know, whatever it was, becoming more technically proficient or whatever it was just, you know, it wasn't that I needed this whole massive improvement. I just needed to know that, hey, after 2020, I got better. I can look back and say I got better across like 6 ships, like 6 different categories of like self-improvement. And it really, putting that in that framing really allowed me to really enjoy the process as well. You know, it's kind of like what you were saying. You get to a point where, you know, you stop losing the guilt of jumping ship, and you start enjoying the process of actually, you know, discovering new things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, you can't make yourself feel bad for what your heart is pulling you towards.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Because we're all like living in this, a lot of us are living in this realm or reality of like, well, we have to, like, once we start, we have to finish. And I believe in that too. Like, I believe fulfill your duties that you committed to. But when it's time to go, it's okay. It's okay to jump that ship and to learn a different trade. You're still taking all the shit that you learned with you. You're building this, what is it called? Like a portfolio. You're building this whole portfolio behind you.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really like the idea of learning out in the open too. I really like, you know, it's something that is really starting to catch on right now, where people are like, they're exploring things and they're sharing that as you know, their journey takes place, which is really interesting. You get to learn a lot from other people, their mistakes, what they did wrong, what they did do wrong. And yeah, I find a lot of value in that as well. But I wanted to ask you, there was something that you said that I found super interesting, because I'm trying to do it as well. And that's, you just created this brand Think, and you were just kind of sharing your journey, and you started to realize that there's a lot more people out there who are on the same or very similar journey that can relate to you and resonate with what you're saying. And you kind of built this tribe online. And I think that that's really, that's going to happen more and more now, where people are going to share, it could be anything. It could be their hobbies, their interests, the work that they're doing. It could be, you know, various things, but it's going to attract like-minded people. And I think what we might even end up seeing is people move together based on those interests and those ideas and stuff like that. So it's what I'm trying to do right now. It's kind of build an online community where, you know, it's just like-minded individuals and who can connect and work with each other over time, you know. And I guess I wanted to ask you just kind of that process. Was there anything surprising? Did it happen naturally? Like, did you put your mind to it? like and deliberately want to build a tribe, or is it just something that just randomly happened? You're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I got like 50,000 people now in this tribe.
Yeah, well, no, it didn't happily. It didn't happen like with. I didn't want to do it in the beginning. I resisted every bit of my self-expression in the beginning.
Sure.
I didn't think I was a creative person at all, and so my creativity channels through me through writing, right? And like now through like other different designs and stuff like that, digital design. But that expression to me didn't exist, and so the more I started to tap into that expression, I would sit at my desk and I would tell my ego mind to shut the fuck up and go in the corner of the room. Give me 10 minutes. Like I would do this. I used to do this all the time for like probably 6 months straight until it just became habit. And in that 10 minutes, I would write everything that came to mind, wouldn't judge it. It would just flow out. And then I started getting better at doing it through my phone. Right. And so through that process, I started to have like more belief in my ability to allow myself to flow. And then through that flow, I started to kind of publish things here and there on social media. And the turning point, I guess the turning point where I started to actually believe that I was doing something, I guess you could say, because back then, like nothing was monetized and like it was just it was like vanity metric type stuff back then, right? The turning point was when I had 2 or 3 people in like a month span tell me that they wanted to commit suicide. And because of my writing, they didn't do it. And
Wow.
they're here because of like what I wrote. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, that was my reaction. Like I was crying too, I think on one of them where I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy to have, because what came to me was like, what I realized is that you have that much impact, like through writing on social media of sharing stuff. And my writing, I guess you could say that the behind that on how I write is I write to myself from a higher version of myself. Right. And so I kind of have like this detachment from like where I'm not talking to you or telling you how to do things. I'm actually telling myself what I need to pay attention to, how I need to think better and do better. And that translates into me talking to them like that, right? And that, I don't know if that's a magic recipe or not, but that helped me build an audience.
Well, I think so. I've kind of, I've never taken writing seriously. I've written here and there over the past, let's say, decade, but I never really took it seriously until recently. And so, number one, writing as far as a tool for clarifying your own thoughts, for like you said, there's always this chaos that's happening in our mind. But what I've come to find out is that if the more you write about it, the more that noise settles down and you can actually think things through a little bit better. And writing is really the tool that helps you do that. But then when I started writing and publishing and I started getting messages about how my writing is impacting people's lives, it really made me aware that there are other people out there who want to hear what I have to say, who are craving, that connection of people who may like who see what they see and have a similar perspective, but they just can't really articulate it yet. And they appreciate the writing that comes from me. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. So it's also something that I've come to realize is just really important in the whole journey is writing itself. And if there's like anything that I would encourage more people to do is to write,
Yeah, man. It's crazy too, because like when you start to open up that channel, like it's kind of like when you're in line at like a stadium or even in a grocery store or at some store or whatever. And like everybody's backed up, like there's no flow going through. And then someone opens up a new register and then all of a sudden everything rushes in, right? And there's another system that's in play now. That's how I view writing. That's how I view self-expression overall. We all have these different modalities that we can use, to these different modes, these different ways of expressing ourselves that we can use. Most of the time we don't use more than like 2 or 5%, right? We only use one that we know, and it's just our voice, right? And so when we start to tap into these different avenues, we open up those floodgates and things just rush through that we never even imagined that were there. that's my connection with writing. My connection also with speaking and being able to talk freely. It just, there's things that come through where I'm like, where the fuck did you come from? Like, where'd you come from? You know what I mean? And I really do believe, though, there's a connection with being able to express yourself. Rather, let me say this in a different way. I really do believe that there's a connection with limiting your self-expression and violence, addiction, making really fucked up decisions, and having your life go in a downward spiral. Limiting your self-expression, I really firmly believe it ties into a lot of that stuff, because when we can't express ourselves, we can't release that energy that's there.
So, I got something to say on that, because that's actually what you said is really profound, at least from my vantage point, is when I struggled with self-expression. I struggled articulating my thoughts, my frustrations, my concerns. I just didn't have the communication skills necessary to be able to, verbalize or articulate in any way what I was thinking. And it made me an angry person, like growing up. Like, I would get extremely frustrated very quick, and that frustration would come out in like kind of these temper tantrums. I mean, looking back on it, I would call it that, but it was, I was a grown man, and a violent grown man who gets upset over the smallest things because they can't express themselves is a scary sight sometimes. So and it wasn't until I started writing and I started expressing myself that way that I became a lot more calm. My mind just became a lot more calm. My behavior became a lot less erratic and impulsive. And so I absolutely 100% agree with that, like, assessment of the connection between writing and violence and all of that, communicating and self-expression and violence and all of that stuff. And that's why now, kind of jumping ship a little bit into another realm, it's why I think that censorship that we're seeing today is very toxic for our society, because like when you limit people's speech, it's exactly what you said. You really open the door for violence. It's like, okay, you're not going to let me express myself. You're not going to let me talk about the things that are concerning to me. You're not going to allow my perspective to be heard. For a lot of people, they might become frustrated with that. And, violence is usually what follows, censorship or limiting people's ability to speak. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, man, I agree with that, dude. I really do agree with that. There's a couple different moving parts with that. I think that there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people who don't know how to express themselves from like square one. They don't know how to express themselves. They think that yelling and screaming and rioting and looting is the way to express yourself. I think it's the lowest form of expression, if you even want to call it that. But that's really what the result, though, you get of not being heard and listened to, and being frustrated and angry. And then there's the mediums that are there now, the different social media platforms that are available now, where a lot of them are being censored now, where freedom of speech doesn't really exist anymore because it doesn't fit the narrative of whatever company's running that modality. So then people get frustrated and they move into different platforms or find different ways of expressing themselves. I think that if people realize that they have the ultimate control over their own destiny by choosing the work that matters to them most, by making a difference in society that matters to them most in a way that actually helps other people, including themselves, right? But helps other people, then I think that if people tapped into those modalities or tapped into those aspirations and started to fulfill on those aspirations and make movements around that, we would figure out different ways of expressing ourselves and connecting and creating communities. Like you had said before, that's what you want to focus on. We can create those type of communities. But right now, though, there's a lot of people, majority of people are focused on what I can't say, why I can't say it. They're blocking me. I'm not being heard, not being listened to. They haven't moved past that part yet. And they're stuck in anger, and they're stuck in anguish, and they're stuck in violent protesting, or violence, just say violence, right? And naturally so, though, because we understand psychology, that's what you're going to get out of that, right? Because people aren't properly educated and informed on how to express themselves, how to create something different, how to create a movement, how to create a community, right? So when you have that available, when you're able to do that, you can move yourself in ways that's not fitting what's happening on the screen, on TV. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. No, it absolutely does make sense. So, I mean, I guess staying on this subject of what's happening today and along those lines, you want to get into that a little bit? Talk about
I'm down, dude.
what you see happening in our society. Talk more about current events. You know, obviously, 2020 is crazy. There's a lot of things that have changed. People are walking around with masks on. It just seems like you know, the masses are totally hypnotized to the mainstream narrative that's coming from government, from big corporation, from social media. Censorship is definitely on the rise. And yeah, just what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on masks? You know, and the idea that, you know, this is being forced upon us, where we're having our own agency kind of removed from the equation. And it's all about heavy authoritarian approaches to dealing with this, you know, pandemic, as opposed to coming at this from the perspective of the individual and allowing them to make their own choices based on the information we have.
Yeah, well, damn, there's so much that's going through my head. That's why I'm there's, at the very basis of humanity, people will always judge no matter what, right? Like, there's always that comparison factor. Am I better than you, or I'm better than you, or I have a job here and you don't have a job here. I make this much money. I'm this skin tone. I'm from here. I'm this age. There's always a comparison, right? A comparison factor at the basis of everything. So going to the next thing, I think that people having the choice, having the choice to wear a mask and not wear a mask is the next best step. If you want to wear a mask, that's fine. If you think that's going to help you, that's fine. That's cool. That's all good, right? Again, though, the base is always comparison, always judgment, right? So I really believe no matter where we go, there's always going to be conflicting sides. There's always going to be two sides battling each other, right? So even if you do have the choice of, hey, because first of all, I know that masks don't work. Like how the media and government agencies are saying that it works. They don't work. I've worked with masks a majority of my life. They don't fucking work like that, right? And so it also fits this other part where, like in sales, like you want to sell people what they need, but you also want to sell them what they want. Because when you give them what they want, it'll help them embrace what they need. Like, for example, you don't need to do fucking bicep workouts, right? If you want to have a great body and physical body, like you don't need to focus on your biceps like that. You know what I mean? But people want to do biceps because they want guns, right? Like, all right, cool. I'm going to give you a little bit of a gun workout so that way you can actually do some shit that really matters, which is maybe some cardio or doing some full body or core workouts, shit like that, right? Stabilization workouts, things that matter, right?
Gotcha.
But you got to give people a little bit of what they want to get them to where they need to go, right? Mm-hmm. And so that goes into vaccines. I know you didn't ask about that, but that goes into vaccines because we don't need those vaccines. But people want them though because they feel more secure, right? You don't need masks, but people want them though because they feel more secure, right? And so there has to be those options available. And so whatever I say, it doesn't fucking matter ultimately. I don't believe in masks. I don't believe they work. I think that it all comes down to compliance. I think that's the base of everything, is to comply, get to see how many people can comply. And it's not even about how many people can or will comply. It's getting people to comply. Like that's the objective that I see. Okay. Cause it has nothing to do with health. It has nothing to do with wellness. Cause if you go to any restaurant, you can see clearly 5 or 6 feet away, there are people sitting down with no masks on while you're standing in line to put your name down for a seat. And you're having to wear a mask. It has nothing to do with health, right? Because if it did, you wouldn't even go outside. We wouldn't even be having a discussion on whether this is a pandemic or not, or whether masks work or not. We wouldn't be having that discussion in the reality of this is fucking real, masks work. We wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
Yeah.
So that's my opinion on that. I think it's about compliance. And I think the next best step in, I don't know, some sort of unicorn reality is nobody judges each other and everybody just lives amongst each other or with each other. Do what the fuck you want to do. If you want to put a fucking thing on your face, put a thing on your face. But don't come at me for not putting a thing on my face. And I won't come at you. I won't even judge you. I don't care. Wear it in your car alone. I don't care. like that's on you. That's my take on that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good take. And I think that, if we were going to structure society in a way that, people are, tolerant and, there's like this cohesiveness, it's under the principles that, hey, let us, let people do what they feel is right. If that's, like you said, putting the thing on their face, that's fine. If it's not, let's not, but let's not demonize people as grandma killers and as just horrible people for having questions about the efficacy of this measure, and also pushing back on just the encroachment on our liberties, on our freedoms, on our agency, in order to make the decisions for ourselves. But go ahead, will you say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something. And think about this too, Mike. Like, people who are judging and criticizing and being pissed off and angry about whatever it is that's happening in society, right? And I do this too. I get annoyed as fuck with people as well. And I get annoyed too as well what I'm seeing that's happening in society. So I'm not exempt from this. I partake in that too as well. Now, to the degree where people are literally losing their shit, and like literally losing their shit where they can't even function now in life, those people have no control over what was the first topic that we discussed, one of the first topics, self-talk, managing your own mind. They have not yet to even come close to even getting an inkling of an experience of managing their own mind, managing their own self-talk, redirecting themselves towards what they want. They're so focused and hypnotized by what's happening in the world, they can't peel themselves away from it and actually focus on what matters in life. They can't set the new path, a new tone of what's going to happen in their life. So they're stuck in that destructive me versus you narrative.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And okay, so as far as other events in 2020, there was an election that just took place. What are your thoughts on that election? There was a lot of, I guess, people who believe that the election was maybe not stolen, but definitely a lot of fuckery happened and a lot of fraud was committed. Is that kind of your belief? Is that what you're seeing? Are you even paying attention to that? Is that something that we should pay attention to? Like, kind of, what are your thoughts on that?
I was paying more attention to it. When I say more, it's like I wasn't infatuated with it. I wasn't looking for things. Things just kind of fall into my awareness, and then I kind of read up on whatever's in my awareness. But I was like, I did care more earlier on. Yeah, definitely a lot of fuckery has happened. Like, that's obvious. If you've even spent more than a few minutes on those hearings, those live hearings that were happening in those different states where the fuckery took place, you would see the overwhelming evidence. Like, there is no back and forth about that. There's a shitload of evidence that shows there was fraud happening. Yeah, I believe that's a fact. Where I'm at now with it, I care a lot less about it, because regardless of what happens, there's no trust. There is no connection. There's a very, very big, huge gap now between what is constitutionally right and correct and what occurred. And there's a lot of different forces in play right now that are supporting the narrative of nothing happened, everything's okay, even though there's overwhelming evidence. So given that, and there's like half of the population who believe that narrative, that's a big fucking problem moving forward. And I think that's kind of why people are why there's certain officials and certain politicians and different other entities that are avoiding even talking about that, because of what that would do to the country. Even furthermore, like how that would impact the country, because now, like, there's a lack of trust, lack of connection. There is no United States. There is no unity between that. You know what I mean? Or with that, what's happened. So you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. You can't just wipe it under the rug.
Where do you see things going from here? Like, I guess, like, from my perspective, it's just going based off what you said. There is no unity. There is no United States. It's very obvious that the country is divided. We're in a rough position right now. What does that mean? What does that mean for people who want to just go about their lives, manifest their highest versions of themselves, and kind of, do we just ignore that and push through, or is that something that we really got to consider? And kind of what do you see happening here in the near future, in like 2021 to 2022?
Yeah, man. Fuck, dude. I'm gonna go with what's there. I think that, like, we're all born into a country that we're born into, right? So we're born in the USA, born in the United States. That's the country we're born into. Um, I think that there are going to be a lot of people who rise up both violently and peacefully. I think there is going to be a lot of violence that comes out of this. And I
mean,
think
we're already seeing
be,
it, right? We're seeing it from the left with the Black Lives Matter, with Antifa. I mean, they obviously have embraced the idea of violence to solve their problems, or to get, to further their political power, right?
Yeah. And I also think that they're not actually like legitimate fucking organizations. I think they're being funded and pushed. I mean, they're legitimate to a certain degree, but they're also being funded and pushed by outside sources for a certain agenda. I think what you're going to see, though, are a lot of people rising up and creating their own versions of communities and organizations, and maybe even small ran cities, and maybe even countries where people will like try to proclaim like their own country, their own land.
Texas, maybe.
Texas, maybe. Yeah, I foresee that happening. Like legitimate ones, not that Chaz bullshit, but legitimate ones. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to create, because there's people that see the bullshit, that see what's happening, and that like don't want any part of it. They're like, fuck this, man. Like, I was born in this country, but I don't belong to this country. Like, I'm not like I'm not tied into any sort of government or any sort of agency or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I was born on this land, but the system is broken, and I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's what I'm 100% in alignment with. I do alignment with, but I do share, like, I do think those thoughts. I think that I'm kind of speaking for what I see happening. And I think that, we're going to be seeing a lot more darkness before we see light. But I think that whatever you tap into, whatever it is that you're connected to, like as far as your purpose and what you're here for and what you want to create in this life, I think you're going to be drawn to those people and those circumstances and those events. And I think people who are sucked into the drama and who live in fear every single day, who are checking everything that's happening and are like, fuck, this is happening. Oh my God, we're doing this, we're doing that. 7 days of darkness, and that fucking shit doesn't happen, right? Like, people are living in that fear all the time. I think you're going to be drawn into that reality, though. And you're going to be surrounded by people who are also living out that reality. That will be your own manifestation. I think we're going to see a heavy distinction, a lot of distinctions with that, on what we tap into and play out in our own minds. We're going to fall into that.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's a trap, to rob people of, tapping into their higher selves, keep them paying attention to this reality, this low vibrational reality, as opposed to, working on themselves, or building something, or being productive, or creating something that's of value. Yeah, I in a way, I do feel intuitively, that is also part of what's happening, whether it's a planned agenda to rob people of their creative capacity, or whether it's something that just happens as a byproduct from all the political shenanigans that are happening. It is something that I feel like, we're going to see a split between people who are of that, the realm or the world of the old system, and those who kind of embrace this new awakening that's happening, and kind of manifest their, whatever it is that they view their higher purpose as. And going back into what you were saying, the internet's pretty powerful in that regard, where, you can put your ideas and your thoughts out there and attract people to you that way. And out of that, what comes out of that is going to be interesting. What I've been doing is I've been tapping into certain people and just reaching out to them. That's where writing comes into place too. I'll write to them and I just tap into them and kind of get their feedback and their ideas. And this is something that we've never have been able to do as human beings. Since with the internet came out, but now more so now with social media and other ways of connecting with people, we can tap into minds and people, connect with people we've never been able to before. If you were born in America and you were born in a small town, I mean, you're very limited to the amount of people you can collaborate with and share ideas with and grow from. And now there's this whole internet where we can tap into all types of minds and get clarification on certain things and go deeper into subjects on other things. And I'm just wondering if that's something that you've noticed as well. I know for me, it's been really helpful collaborating with people across the internet, complete strangers who I've never met before, but they provided so much value in that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like, I think that's it's crucial to develop, like, to help develop your ideas and to put your ideas and action into play, or to get your ideas into action and put that into play. You need to have that human connection. Like, you need to be able to reach out to people and connect to people and share ideas and connect minds together, because there's a lot of other people who are thinking just like you and
Sure.
they want the same things, right? And there's a lot, and those people aren't living in fear, right? And that's the thing that's going to keep people down, is fear. Keep people from actually going out and doing what they want to do. It's fear, which I think, I know you said it's kind of like, and I agree with you too as well, where like, is this planned? Is this the objective? What's behind the scene? I do believe the objective behind the scene is to keep people living in fear, because when you're living in fear, you're not creating what you really want. You're creating what you fear. Right? And so being able to have access to people and connect to people and share your ideas, but first of all, thinking along the lines of bigger ideas and bigger thoughts than what's normal, that's what's going to have you, like what you're doing, is have that courage to reach out to people and connect with people. So yeah, I think it's important. It's 100% important. But first and foremost though, you need to realize that all of this bullshit that's going on right now in the world, it's fear-based shit. And that fear-based shit is to have you be down and hold you down and keep you wobbling.
Yep. I agree. Well, Rob, I mean, that's I kind of went through my whole list here and hit on all the subjects I wanted to ask you about and talk about. Is there anything else on your mind that you want to get out there, or just kind of say to my audience?
Nah, man, I'm good, dude. I just want to say thank you for having me here. I have a question though for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to create? What are you up to?
Yeah. So, I've been giving this a lot of thought actually in the past few months. My wife and I, we traveled about 2 years ago. We went kind of all around the world. And what we saw was that a lot of people kind of built businesses on the land that they had. And so we started thinking about this idea of creating like a bed and breakfast, or, maybe in Costa Rica or somewhere like that. But as 2020 kind of came around, and I feel like circumstances have really called me to do something greater. And we're still figuring exactly what that looks like. I'm figuring out exactly what that looks like. But I know it's along the lines of helping people create more sovereignty in their lives. And also being able to connect sovereign-minded individuals so they can collaborate and create great things together as well. So, that's the avenue we're going down. And what I mean by sovereignty is there's one aspect of it where you're building more independence in your life in a practical manner, where, maybe you're growing your own food, or, you're homeschooling, you're just living off of, you're living as independently as possible away from, the system that's being, constructed around us. That's one aspect. There's also the aspect of sovereignty in our own mind. And that's, recognizing the information that's out there in the world, being able to process that information in a way that allows you to make sense of it and not be manipulated by certain narratives that are out there that are trying to make you think, trying to make you believe things that aren't true, or trying to deceive you in ways. That's the other part about sovereignty, is learning how to think in a sovereign way. And so the practical perspective and more of the internal perspective of sovereignty is what I'm trying to promote. And so I'm not prepared right now to talk about my bigger idea that I have, but it's definitely going to be along the lines of promoting sovereignty and connecting sovereign-minded individuals around the world. So I appreciate the question,
awesome,
though. I had to think through that one a little bit.
It's all good, brother.
Real quick, I do got one more question for you. Anything you're reading right now, or any books that you would recommend to my audience for them to check out?
Yeah, man. This book right here, I'm still reading this book. This is my second time reading it, but I'm reading it. Neuro Wisdom. It's a badass book. Neuro Wisdom, the new brain science of money, happiness, and success. It's a damn good book. It has a lot of different exercises, a lot of different scientific studies that show how our mind and brain works and how it functions. A lot of different exercises on there, so it's really helpful, super helpful.
Cool, man. Appreciate that. I might have to check that out. I got a stack of books that I got to get through. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. It was a great talk. Maybe you can come on again one time, shoot the shit again, and see what's going on.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, more than down, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you got it, man. All right, man. So take care, and I'll see you on the next one.
See you, brother.
Peace.